Tonight's reenactments and commentary may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Strange sexual behavior, exploitation, extortion, false imprisonment. These were just some of the incendiary words that the jury heard as opening statements were made in the Michael Jackson child molestation trial. The prosecution claims that Jackson plied a then 13-year-old boy with alcohol, exposed him to pornography, and then molested him. The defense says that Jackson is the victim of a money-hungry mother who used her child in an extortion scheme, and that she's done it before. If convicted, the King of Pop could face up to 20 years in prison. Hello and welcome to the Michael Jackson trial and E! News presentation. I'm James Curtis. Judge Rodney Melville, who is presiding over the Jackson trial, has ruled that no cameras are allowed in the Santa Maria courtroom. So every day we'll bring you reenactments of the trial's key moments, all based on actual courtroom transcripts. And every day our team of legal analysts will break it down for you. Jackson arrived to the court with his mother, Catherine, and brother, Jermaine, by his side. The trial began on time with District Attorney Tom Sneddon making his opening statement. He began by telling the jury that the case was, in part, about a desperate attempt by Jackson to save his career. According to courtroom transcripts, here's how it happened.
On February the 3rd of 2003, Michael Jackson's, the defendant in this case, world was rocked. And it didn't rock in a musical sense. It rocked in a real-life sense. And it was rocked by the fallout from the broadcast in the United Kingdom of the Martin Bashir video documentary, Living with Michael Jackson. And his life was rocked so badly that one of his longtime closest and most trusted associates and co-conspirator in this case, Mark Schaffel, described it as a train wreck. Now, I'm sure that some of you ladies and gentlemen are going to be a little surprised to learn, as the testimony and the evidence unfolds in this case, that actually for years prior to the video, the defendant in this case was heavily in debt. That his musical assets and his real estate property...
Objection. Sustained.
Your Honor, that's the motive for the defendant's
Objection
actions.
again, Your Honor. He's violating your order.
The final determination as to the financial evidence coming in has not been reached.
Very well, Your Honor. Unfortunately for Mr. Jackson, the effect of the Bashir documentary had just the opposite effect. This case in count one is a case about conspiracy. It's about the train wreck situation caused by the Bashir documentary. It's about the world's reaction and how it created the motive for the once superstar's desperate attempt to salvage his once very powerful musical career.
I'm joined now by our legal team, Sean Chapman-Holly, managing partner of the Johnny Cochran Law Firm and member of the team that successfully defended O.J. Simpson, Ricky Kleeman, a well-known legal analyst for the Today Show and for Court TV, and of course, Howard Weitzman, one of this country's most respected trial attorneys who has represented Michael Jackson in matters unrelated to this trial, but who will provide us with his unique and meaningful insights about the man they call the King of Pop. Sneddon said that the Bashir documentary was a train wreck for Jackson, and that Jackson started a conspiracy to cover it all up and save his good career. Ricky Kleeman, was that the way to start?
I think it's the way to start for him, because he really believes that this all happened after that documentary. What he says is Michael Jackson's trying to shore it all up, make sure that his empire doesn't fall, that it's at that time that he winds up in such an intimate situation with this young man. There's a problem here, though.
And we're going to get to that problem in just a moment. Let me get Sean in on this. Good way to start?
Well, I suppose so. But, I think the Martin Bashir video helps Michael Jackson in some ways, because he comes out forthright and says, I sleep in the bed with young boys. Yeah. That shows he doesn't think there's anything wrong with it. He's a child. And he says that himself.
Does it really show that, though, Howard? And is this portrayal of Michael Jackson vis-a-vis Martin Bashir a good idea?
You know what? It's all in the editing. It's very clear to me that Martin Bashir's had an agenda. And the agenda was to portray Michael Jackson in a certain way. It's almost like he was working with Tom Sneddon. It's pretty bizarre. And when you listen to what Tom Sneddon said, it's more about setting the scene for this jury, and I believe trying to inflame their passion and their attitude toward Michael.
When he began his opening statement, District Attorney Tom Sneddon made the case that Jackson wanted to save his career by having the alleged victim participate in a rebuttal video. The prosecution claims that Jackson used pornography and sexually explicit conversations to essentially desensitize his young accuser, thereby setting him up for eventual sexual contact. And as you're about to hear, Sneddon was not shy about that explicit language. At this time, E will not disclose the accuser's family name, but according to the courtroom transcripts, here's what the jury heard.
Now, what happens that night is this. The defendant, Frank Tyson, the defendant's children, particularly his son Prince Michael, and the two boys are in the downstairs area of the Jackson bedroom suite. And after a few hours, they go upstairs to the bedroom. And when they get up into the bedroom, Tyson pulls out a laptop computer, and Jackson and Tyson are hooking the computer up to the internet. And when they get on the internet, they then place the computer with the boys there, and they take the boys, 9-year-old and 10-year-old, on a tour of sexually explicit websites, naked ladies. They take them on a tour of a number of websites, and it lasts approximately 30 to 40 minutes. And during the time that they travel through these websites, at one of the points in time when a female is shown with her shirt up, exposing her breast, the defendant turns and exclaims, "Got milk?" And he turns around to the sleeping Prince on the bed and says, "Prince, you're missing a lot of." The boys spent the night with Michael Jackson. They did not sleep in bed with him. They slept in the bed. And it is true, Jackson slept on the floor.
Some very strong words there, and the prosecution says that they were used to desensitize this accuser. But how is this kind of talk going to play with the jury? Sean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously the jury knows this is a case about sexual conduct, so I think that they're ready for this. They're grown-ups.
You got some older folks on this
I was
jury.
about to say, they're very grown-up.
70s, 80s folks. Are they going to react kindly to this, or are they going to think that Sneddon is being a little too explicit?
Well, he's being explicit for a particular purpose, and that is to get a rise, no pun intended, out of these potential jurors. And if you see the way Sneddon set it up, and you go back to the opening statement where he started to bring in the financial asset issue, and the judge sustained the objection, I just want to point something out. There's not a doubt in my mind that Tom Sneddon knew he wasn't supposed to say that.
Oh, absolutely.
And he said it for a purpose.
I want to take up on that point when we come back and continue with that, but I want to take off on what you said earlier, Howard, with respect to the Bashir connection, Ricky Kleeman. Do you agree with Howard's assessment, excuse me, do you agree with Howard's assessment that this Bashir video, this entire special that kicked off this entire investigation is maybe a little too convenient?
Oh, no, I don't think it's too convenient. If I'm Tom Sneddon in this case, I say, look what I've got. I've got it in pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. My story, if I'm Sneddon, is this is a case about manipulation. It starts out as a case of Peter Pan behavior on the part of Michael Jackson. That just escalates over time to being wholly inappropriate. Manipulate, manipulate, manipulate. I think Sneddon's on a roll. He
may be on a roll, or he may have more than one Achilles heel in the form of the mother, Martin Bashir, and other issues that arise in this trial. When we come back, Prosecutor Thomas Sneddon details the alleged sexual abuse in no uncertain terms. Stay with us.
At the same time that this 44-year-old man is sharing with 13-year-old Gavin and 12-year-old Star and another 11-year-old boy his collection of sexually explicit magazines, that he's talking to Gavin about masturbation.
Welcome back to the Michael Jackson trial and E! News presentation. So far, the prosecution has been speaking in general terms about how Michael Jackson allegedly set up his accuser for sexual interaction. Now, according to the courtroom transcripts, Prosecutor Sneddon continues to tell the jurors that the alleged victim and his brother will take the witness stand to reveal what they say happened in Michael Jackson's bedroom.
Lastly, you're going to be able to peek into the defendant's private world, and you're going to hear Gavin describe to you his molestation. You will hear Star tell you how, on other occasions, he happened upon seeing Michael Jackson masturbating himself with one hand, while Jackson's other hand was inserted into the underpants of his brother Gavin.
Now, according to the courtroom transcripts, prosecutor Tom Snedden continues by telling the jurors that the alleged victim and his brother will take the witness stand to indeed reveal what they say actually happened in the bedroom. Now, before we get to that, Ricky Kleeman, it's getting deep, it's getting thick, it's getting explicit. Obviously, it's factually related to what the prosecution says happened, but you still got to ask yourself, don't you, is this what you want to do in front of these elderly jurors?
Absolutely, 100%. This is a case about sexual molestation. The prosecution can't run away from that. The prosecution has to put it right out there. And I think what Tom Snedden is doing is very skillful. He's talking about the art of seduction. It's the softening up of these youngsters, and that finally the act occurs. And I think the testimony is going to come out that way. The opening statement is the time to set the stage. He's doing a good job.
Now, Howard, with respect to the issue that you brought up a few moments ago, the money motive that was objected to initially, how does that tie into setting this kind of stage?
Well, for me, it shows that Snedden is willing to say and do anything to set the plate for these jurors. And I agree with Ricky. Using the words and using the description is his attempt to paint a picture that he thinks will appeal to the passion and the bias of this older jury.
Well, we're going to see. There are a couple of young folks on the jury, but how is this all going to play? With an apology to jurors for such a long opening statement, prosecutor Thomas Snedden wrapped it up. Then defense attorney Thomas Mesereau was up and had his shot at this jury. He started out by saying that an opening statement is like a contract, meaning when you say something, when you make a promise to the jury, you have to keep it. And what Mesereau promised was to prove exactly what he was about to tell the jury. He brought up the first of many celebrity names that are sure to be peppered throughout this trial. Here's what the jury heard, according again to the actual courtroom transcripts.
These charges are fake. 10 silly, ridiculous...
Your Honor, I'm going to object as argumentative.
Sustained.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have an organized opening statement for you. I'm going to take you through the various topics. Who Mr. Jackson is, what Neverland is, how he met these people, what kind of lives they have led. But I've decided, in light of what was just said, to start off with a couple of issues that I'd like you to think about throughout the trial, because I'm going to prove exactly what I'm going to tell you now. First of all, the family is from Los Angeles. We are going to bring in witnesses to tell you about their behavior. For example, Janet and Gavin called comedian Jay Leno and tried to get money for Mr. Leno. Mr. Leno has told the Santa Barbara police something was wrong. They were looking for a mark. It sounded scripted. The mother was in the background, and I terminated the conversation. Comedian George Lopez was approached by Gavin and Janet. He was asked for money. He didn't want to give money. And then they accused him of stealing $300 from Gavin's
Your
wallet.
Honor, I'm going to object to that statement. The court has a 403 ruling.
Sustained.
The 403 ruling, the ruling that the court makes before the trial starts to essentially lay down all the rules about what's permissible and what's not, obviously. Now the defense getting into an area that's not permissible. But let's talk about this issue of the other celebrities. Sean, the idea that Jay Leno was mentioned, other celebrities mentioned as other targets similarly situated, just like Michael Jackson. Good idea?
Yeah, it's a great idea. And Tom Mesereau is setting up two themes here. One, this family's from Los Angeles, so there are these celebrities that they can victimize. The other is, he says very carefully, the mother was in the background. And that's really, I think, going to be a theme that we see throughout this trial.
Howard, you're nodding your head. Good?
Well, I don't know about good. Here's the concern I have for Tom Mesereau. He's mentioned celebrities and he's mentioned conduct. He has to now produce the celebrities, in my opinion, and the conduct. If he produces Jay Leno and he produces George Lopez and the testimony comes out like he has indicated, that is really powerful that this kid is being manipulated rather than the opposite, which is Jackson manipulating the child.
A huge, huge hill for this prosecution team to climb. Later in his opening statement, Attorney Mesro sought to establish a pattern by the accuser's mother and her children of ensnaring people for money. He reminded the jury that she admitted to lying in another case, and now he's about to lay out those details. According to actual courtroom transcripts, here's the reenactment.
Janet sued J.C. Penney in West Covina in Los Angeles County. She was living in Los Angeles with her family at various locations, which will become important, and I will tell you why. She claimed that she was the victim and her children were the victim of battery, false imprisonment, and infliction of emotional distress. This was in July of 1999. Almost a year later, she amended that complaint to add sexual assault by a security officer. What did she say the security officer had done in the J.C. Penney public parking lot? She said her breasts were fondled. Her nipple was squeezed 10 to 20 times. She was punched with a closed fist by a J.C. Penney security guard. She was molested in her vaginal area, and she was called racial slurs. That is the case where she was testifying under oath. That is the case where the prosecutor says she lied. She has admitted lying in that case. Her son was ill. The lawsuit was settled. The family got a total of $152,500. That's the family.
The family, the family, the family. Ricky Kleeman, I think this is huge and important ammunition for this defense team.
Absolutely true. After jury selection, the most important part of a trial, I believe, is the opening statement. And what we're seeing here is really the classic version, that the hand has two sides. We've seen the prosecution side. Now we're seeing the defense side. And the defense side here is wonderful. They use the same theme. It's manipulation, only this time not manipulation by Michael Jackson. It's manipulation by a con artist mom using her child.
Now, I can't tell you, Howard, how many times as a prosecutor that I've been subject to a defense attorney getting up saying, there's two sides to the hand, but this side, from the defense perspective, is very, very strong. How can the prosecution counter it?
Well, the prosecution cannot rely on the mother. Clearly, her credibility, I think, will be completely and totally impeached.
It's going to be tough.
They need to call other witnesses that testify to giving the minor alcohol.
Yeah.
They have to call other witnesses about pornography. They cannot rely on the mother. They cannot rly on the brother.
Now, Sean, about 5 seconds. If the mother and the brother are bad, it's horrible testimony, can you even support it?
Look, if the witnesses are bad for the prosecution, as far as I'm concerned, it's out of here. They got the burden of proof.
And will this jury
the
reach the same conclusion? When we return, Mesro tells the jury about a shopping spree he says proves the accuser's family was never held against their will.
Let's go through what she was buying and what was ultimately billed to Michael Jackson during this terrible period of false imprisonment.
Tonight's reenactments and commentary may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the Michael Jackson trial and E! News presentation. Here, Thomas Mesereau lays out some pricey evidence that says it's clear that no one was being imprisoned at Neverland. According to the courtroom transcripts, here's how it happened.
Let's go through what she was buying and what was ultimately billed to Michael Jackson during this terrible period of false imprisonment. February 14th, 2003. Full leg wax at Bare Skin Salon for $50. A lip wax, a bikini wax. Has her face done at Aromatherapy Day Spa. The total is $140. February 21st, Lisa's Beauty hair products for Janet are purchased for $28.91. The same day, she buys bras and jockey bikinis at Robinson May, a total of $92.24, all billed to Michael.
All billed to Michael Jackson. Sean, is there a danger, as good as this evidence appears for the defense, is there a danger of backlash from Mesereau here?
No. This is perfect.
No downside.
This is absolutely perfect. The jurors have to ask themselves, if I were being falsely imprisoned, is this what I would be doing? And also, of equal importance, this money, all of it, billed to Michael Jackson. Yeah. And he's deliberately saying these numbers, $23.42 billed to Michael Jackson.
Yes, indeed. But
that's
Howard Weitzman, I got to think, there's a downside to everything. None here for the defense?
Maybe. I have one suggestion. If I was Mr. Mesereau, maybe he'll do it in closing, I would have made sure the jury understand where these purchases were made.
Okay.
Were
Ricky,
they in Los Angeles?
Ricky, let me get you in about 5 seconds. What's your input?
I think it's great material. I think Mesereau delivers it with a punch. And if this is false imprisonment, I'd like to go there.
Yeah, indeed. Well, when court resumes, the defense concludes its opening statements, and the state's first witness takes the stand. For E! News, I'm James Curtis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.